run out of ideas. They can't do any more work for Netflix or Spotify or any of the main streamers, and their finances are basically in jeopardy over the long term. Well, I think you can summarize it in 2 words: desperation and faith.
Even Harry had to wake up, and I do believe that this is the first step towards any type of separation, because Harry was unable to even countenance it if it meant he was stuck, miserable in the United States, with absolutely no way of bringing his children back to the UK. And the way that the Californian legal system works, it would have been nigh impossible in order to do so. That changes now. The game changes. They are enrolled in school at the United Kingdom.
Meghan's jam failed to sell out. Her season 2 of her cooking show was an absolute disaster. And this man, I think, will be asking Dad for a little bit more money very, very quickly. I only see bad things on the horizon. And I think also he's trying to get back in with the king because he knows he'll never be able to get back in with Will.
Something about Harry and Meghan's latest UK story feels very different this time. After years of building a life in America and keeping their distance from royal duties, reports are now suggesting that Britain could once again become a much bigger part of their future. There is talk of moving arrangements, possible school plans, and a return that sounds far more serious than another short visit. But while those reports were spreading, Lady Colin Campbell introduced a much more explosive explanation for what could allegedly be happening behind the scenes. According to Lady C, Harry may not simply be choosing to come back. Her argument is that circumstances in America could be putting pressure on him to leave.
Lady Colin Campbell, what on earth is going on? Just weeks after you revealed to the world this close, shall we say, friendship that Prince Harry had developed with a certain young lady in Montecito, they claim to be packing their bags.
This whole situation is very interesting because once Meghan and those children are back in the United Kingdom, that means that the marital home is in the United Kingdom. That means that Harry is in a far stronger position in terms of any future place where, in the event of a permanent separation.
Oh, yes.
That is a dramatic claim, and importantly, it remains her version of events rather than something officially confirmed by US authorities. The reaction surrounding Harry and Meghan in America has also become increasingly mocking. The New York Post joked, "Our long national nightmare is over. Harry and Meghan returning to the UK after failing to take the colonies." An American comedian reportedly pushed the joke even further, saying, "We finally found a deportation that all Americans agree on." Whatever people think of those comments, the tone is obvious. Their possible departure is being treated by some commentators less like a sad goodbye and more like the ending of a controversial American chapter.
He took Meghan and the kids, they came over privately to see the king a few weeks ago. When she said, "I'll never set foot in this country again," and when she said the royal family is racist, and when she slagged off almost every bit of the institution, why does she still want her daughter and son to be a prince and princess then? Part of a racist institution.
Harry's only coming back because he's got nothing to do in California. He's coming back because he's trying desperately to somehow rebuild a life here. It isn't going to work. Not only has he got nowhere to live, but these charities, the Well Child, it's all that's piffling. It's nothing in terms of the real charities. And in Invictus, he's got no importance. He can do everything on the telephone or on the Zoom. He doesn't need to be back. Now, this is Harry desperately trying to find and build a new life.
British royal commentators have been just as sharp. Neil Sean described the Sussex's 6-year experiment as broke and busted, while Tom Bower has argued that Harry lives in a fantasy world and called him a blunderbuss. Angela Levin has also used extremely harsh language when discussing the couple, describing the situation as horrendous, ruthless, and war, while accusing them of lying all the way through. Those are their opinions and allegations, not established facts, but they show just how hostile the commentary around Harry and Meghan has become. Robert Jobson even has a new label for the situation. After Megxit, he has called the latest chapter Regrexit. Discussing whether Harry might accept some kind of smaller royal role, Jobson said he would take it before adding, "It beats selling jam." The joke hits at a bigger question hanging over this story. If Harry really does want a stronger connection with Britain again, what exactly changed?
I have been fed information starting on the 12th of August, which I have kept stum about because I felt it was irresponsible of me to do anything in terms of revealing what was going on. Harry and Meghan, it's all cock and bull. They're not moving back to the United Kingdom because they won't.
When you're writing a book, you're always having this struggle of what are you going to hold and what are you going to include. And I had a fairly lengthy chapter, which is now going to need to be rewritten, about how a friend of Harry's telling me that, you know, he was going to go house hunting, that he was looking, and that person said to me that he was looking in the Cotswolds near Highgrove, where, of course, he grew up, where he knows everybody, where he knows the pubs, where he knows the secret shortcuts and the footpaths and all those kinds of things, and still has a kind of network of people there.
That is where Lady C's timeline becomes important. She says information began reaching her around August 12th, but she deliberately stayed quiet for more than a week. According to her account, she had been told that a meeting involving US federal authorities took place around August 11th, with attention allegedly focused on paperwork Harry submitted around 2021 when entering the United States. Lady C went much further, claiming there was a strong belief by the feds that Harry lied on his paperwork. She then alleged that if Harry did not leave voluntarily, he was going to be pushed, adding that the Sussexes supposedly could not risk the embarrassment of him possibly being detained. Those allegations need a huge warning label. Lady C did not publicly identify an official supporting the story, point to a document proving it, or establish that Harry had been charged with wrongdoing.
Harry's back in September. We really are seeing more of an effort for him to spend time in the UK. His team claims he's just going to be there to do Well Child and support Invictus. But over the last few years, we have not seen multiple engagements to support an Invictus. You know, he might show up a year before, but then he goes dark again, and then he shows up at Invictus, or he does Hoda Kotb. But it feels a little suspicious to me that he needs to do multiple events to promote Invictus for 2027 in the UK. It just seems like he's trying to spend more time in the United Kingdom and stake his claim again.
The fact that she provided dates makes the story specific, but specificity alone does not prove an allegation. Still, the timing she describes is what makes this worth examining. Her account places alleged federal activity around August 11th, information reaching her shortly afterwards, and reports about the Sussexes' future appearing within roughly the next week. On paper, that looks suspiciously neat. But there is also a major gap in that timeline, and it could seriously change how convincing this entire theory actually sounds. But there is an immediate problem with the idea that Harry and Meghan's reported move was triggered by some sudden crisis in America. On that very same programme, another explanation surfaced, suggesting this return may have been quietly taking shape long before August. Tom Sykes reportedly has a chapter describing Harry as having considered the move for months. According to Sykes, a friend told him back in the spring that Harry was already looking at possible homes. If that account is accurate, then the timeline gets messy fast. A move planned months ahead does not easily fit with the theory that everything suddenly changed during 8 frantic days in August.
They're moving back to the United Kingdom because Harry is endangered as a result of the feds. On the 11th of August, there was a meeting with the feds where they were inquiring into paperwork that he submitted. I mean, I don't have my notes in front of me, but I think it was in 2021, about his visa entry, and that there is a strong belief by the feds that Harry lied on his paperwork to be able to gain admission to the United States as, I suppose you could say, semi-permanent resident.
So instead of assuming one explanation is correct, the real question becomes whether these timelines can actually fit together. And several commentators examining the situation have focused on something much more concrete than rumours about federal authorities, money, legal costs, and some very interesting dates. Neil Sean gave one of the harshest assessments, saying, "They can frame it any way they want," before adding, The bottom line, they are broke and busted. Didn't work, the idea hasn't come along. And that's Sean's interpretation, of course, and there is no public evidence proving Harry and Meghan are literally broke. But Sean connected his argument to something specific: Harry's Daily Mail legal battle.
You know, they can frame it any way they want, right, Hainsley? The bottom line is they're back, broke and busted. It didn't work. The idea hasn't come along. And the really turning point that a lot of people should look at in this long-going narrative, and you do not believe that this only happened on Sunday. You do not organise schools and all that sort of stuff. Mm-hmm. This has been going on for a long time, right? I mean, you know, as a mum, it's not easy, right? So this has been going on a long time.
According to Sean's reading of the situation, Harry had expected that case to go his way and potentially deliver a significant financial result. Sean suggested that when things did not unfold as Harry supposedly expected, it became a major turning point. Then Robert Jobson added another detail that made the timing look even more interesting. According to the discussion, legal costs connected with the unsuccessful case were expected to become clearer almost immediately after reports about the possible UK return started circulating.
Turning point for this really happened with Associated News Limited. This was, of course, the big Daily Mail case that Harry believed he was going to win. This, he was told, was going to solve everything. He was the Dragon Slayer. He was going to have so much money. When that didn't work out, that was the final decision. What I can tell you first, though, Ainsley, is you will notice it's all about Harry returning back. Meghan remains very silent, and I've been told from an excellent source, rather, shall we say, concerned about not only a welcome over here in the United Kingdom, and I think that's a bit harsh, but you have to say everything she's done has actually turned to...
That created an obvious media question. Was the timing simply coincidence, or did announcing positive news about a potential homecoming help shift attention away from an uncomfortable legal and financial story? There is no proof that the announcement was deliberately timed for that reason, but from a publicity standpoint, you can see why people noticed it. A story about Harry potentially rebuilding ties with Britain is certainly more flattering than headlines focused entirely on an expensive court setback. Meanwhile, critics have also been questioning how successful Harry and Meghan's commercial projects have really become. Meghan's As Ever brand was selling lifestyle products, including candles and matches, while commentators were openly debating whether ventures like these could ever replace the enormous media deals and royal-related opportunities that originally followed the couple to California.
I got a text from a friend of mine in Montecito, and I'm trying to cover the name, but he says, "And we say bye-bye," and it's the headline of them. Everyone in Montecito is so happy to see them go, and these people are rich, honey. They are rich. Okay, not Meghan Markle, selling wickless candles. Bye-bye. Everybody's happy to see them go in Montecito.
I can't believe you're on text terms with Gwyneth Paltrow.
Mother Goose.
They run out of ideas. They can't really more work for Netflix or Spotify or any of the main streamers. And their finances are basically in jeopardy over the long term. Well, I think you can summarize it in 2 words. Desperation and faith.
Tom Bower summarised his view by saying they're pretty well burnt out in California and claimed they're going to run out of money themselves before very long. Again, that is Bower's prediction, not verified information about their bank accounts. Jobson was equally critical, arguing they never made their money through original ideas and claiming they made all their money by selling out the royal family. Whether someone agrees with that assessment or not, it points toward a genuine challenge for the Sussexes. Eventually, their projects have to stand independently of royal controversy. Even Daisy McAndrew suggested the British press would welcome their return for a completely different reason. There were champagne corks popping up and down Fleet Street, she said. Them coming back will make a lot of people money. Everyone makes money out of these two. Everyone except these two. But then an entirely different expert entered the conversation, and his focus wasn't gossip or palace drama. Nirmish Shah, chief executive of tax firm Blick Rothenberg, examined the reported dates from a financial perspective. And when he looked at the timing surrounding this possible return, one word reportedly stood out to him: immaculate.
informed of this, and I would imagine, and I was actually also invited to approach people in the United Kingdom for them to raise questions to which would in fact assure the feds of having further backup as to the possibility and the feasibility of, in fact, arresting Harry and depriving him. And I've been receiving lots of information about this starting on the 12th of August.
Then Nimish Shah explained exactly why the timing caught his attention. He said, "It's good to see Harry and Meghan achieve 6 full tax years of non-UK residency to manage the temporary non-resident rules for capital gains tax. They have clearly had some good tax advice, and the timing of the move back to the UK is immaculate." That sounds technical, but the basic idea is much easier to understand. UK tax rules can potentially affect people who leave the country, realise certain gains while abroad, and then return within a particular period. Shah's point was that Harry and Meghan's years outside Britain could matter financially depending on their circumstances, assets, and exactly which tax rules apply to them.
So it's amazing that someone else is coming up with it as well, because this friend of mine, who I think you met him,
Yes, I have. Good man.
He's a genius, and he made the point. They are free and clear they are not liable to tax on any of their American earnings for the previous 6 years. Say what you will, that's clever thinking. That's clever moving. And you can't really knock them for being so clever. I think in a funny sort of way, you have to admire them for being so clever.
Harry and Meghan stepped away from royal life and relocated overseas in 2020. By 2026, they had been outside the UK for roughly 6 years. According to Shah's interpretation, completing 6 full UK tax years abroad could be significant under the temporary non-residence rules. Their individual tax position isn't publicly known, so it would be wrong to claim that avoiding a particular bill was definitely the reason behind any possible return.
It's called the temporary non-residence rule, and it means that if you leave the UK and come back within 5 years, you never really left. But if you stay out for more than 5 years, which in practice means 6 complete calendar years, you're golden. Now look at the Sussex calendar. They left in March 2020, just before the tax year ended on the 5th of April. They have now been non-resident for, surprise, the requisite 6 full tax years from 2020-21 to 25-26, and returning in August 26, a few months into the 7th. If income was cleverly structured as shares, that money is now safely beyond HMRC's 24% rate of capital gains tax reach. So, Lady C, it does make some financial sense.
Still, critics immediately noticed how clean the calendar looked. Lady Colin Campbell said she had heard a similar theory from someone outside royal circles. Instead of attacking them for it, she actually framed the alleged planning as smart. "You can't really knock them for being so clever," she said. "In a funny sort of way, you have to admire them for being so clever." Lady C also described the pattern as a Meghan stunt, essentially her own label for what she sees as a last-minute manoeuvre that changes the situation before consequences arrive.
Harry and Meghan have understood that if they didn't jump, he was going to be pushed. And they could not afford the embarrassment of him possibly being arrested. While now, if he's no longer living in America, I think they are hoping that the whole thing will go away.
That's her characterisation, not an established description of Meghan's behaviour. And importantly, careful tax planning is not automatically suspicious or improper. Wealthy families regularly use professional advisors when deciding where to live and how international tax rules affect them. But taxes may only be one piece of this puzzle. Security could potentially be another major reason Britain is suddenly back in the conversation. Harry has spent years challenging decisions surrounding his security arrangements in the UK. Tom Sykes has pointed toward the court documents and argued that residency could become relevant when determining Harry's position.
But all of a sudden, shit just got real, Tom. Holy mackerel.
Yeah, it's a huge development, isn't it? I mean, if you look at the court papers that were, because this has been in court, right, multiple times about the security. So a lot of the documentation about why they don't have security is very far from being a state secret. It's all over this paperwork. And one of the main reasons that they don't have security is because they are not in the bracket of people who are protected. They are not in the cohort of people who are protected.
His broader theory is that living in Britain again, combined with Harry potentially taking on some limited royal-connected responsibilities, could strengthen the argument for receiving greater protection. That does not mean simply buying a British home and accepting a small charity role would automatically unlock taxpayer-funded security. Security arrangements involve formal assessments and decisions by the relevant authorities, but the possibility has become a major part of the commentary surrounding this reported move, and financially the difference could be enormous. Commentators have estimated that Harry's private security arrangements may cost several $1 million annually, although exact figures are difficult to verify. Robert Jobson has suggested the potential savings could reach around $4 million.
Our long national nightmare is over. Harry and Meghan returning to the UK after failing to take the colonies. But what's interesting is Harry and Meghan's team have briefed Sarah Nathan, the editor-at-large. She's British, by the way. She works for Page Six, claiming to reveal the real reason that they are coming back. Now, Lady C, it's all spin, but it is worth just looking at what Harry and Meghan's team are saying, because the claim is that it is because they want to be closer to King Charles and ensure their children build relationships with family. All of this, of course, Lady C, piling pressure on Prince William, because she then goes on to write, the frost between Prince William and Harry endures as the heir to the throne refuses to talk to his younger brother, we're told.
Then Jobson raised another interesting possibility. Any future arrangement involving Harry might not necessarily extend to Meghan in exactly the same way. Again, that remains speculation about what a hypothetical deal could look like, rather than confirmation that such an agreement exists. That makes the wording appearing in reports about their possible return even more important. One version emphasised, no public money, no official royal duties of any kind. But immediately after that came language reportedly sourced from the Sussex side, and that second part opens up a much bigger question about what Harry might actually be willing to do.
Sources say, clearly this is Harry and Meghan sources, this is Liam Maguire, say if there are discussions on any future role for him, it would need to take place between him and his father. So the translation there is that they're already suggesting, they're already dropping the hints that Harry is going to be asking his father for a royal.
And buried inside the reporting was a line that left plenty of room for what could happen next. According to the account, if there are discussions on any role for him further down the line, it would need to take place between him and his father. So while the public message appears to rule out an immediate royal comeback, it certainly doesn't shut the door forever. Robert Jobson immediately noticed that opening. The king gave Harry an inch, he said, and Harry has taken about 50 yards.
That is ludicrous, and we knew that was just, well, in my view, it was always just a money play, right? They don't want to have the $3 million security bill if they get the government-funded security, so Harry and Meghan would get it even if they were at their home in Montecito. And all of a sudden, $3 million a year on private security costs saved in a flash.
That's Jobson's interpretation, but it highlights the contradiction critics keep coming back to. Harry has spent years describing serious concerns about bringing Meghan and the children to Britain, yet reports now suggest a return could be under consideration. Those concerns were never minor. Harry has previously spoken about threats involving his family and argued that the level of security available to them made bringing his children to the UK difficult. But if Britain is now becoming a realistic home again, people who followed that security battle naturally want to know what changed.
I mean, I'm not entirely utterly surprised it's happened, but I'm very surprised at the speed with which it has happened, that it's happened so quickly.
One of the most interesting reactions came from Dai Davies, the former head of the Royal Protection Command. Davies isn't approaching this simply as a royal commentator. He previously worked directly in protection. He reportedly described the possible return as a 100% U-turn and questioned what could have happened behind the scenes to make such a dramatic change possible. Davies was also sceptical about suggestions that palace officials knew virtually nothing about these reported plans until shortly before they became public. With potential homes, schools, logistics, and security arrangements all potentially involved, he said, "The idea beggars belief." Then he moved away from royal drama and into the practical security problem. Davies said there are more than 1,000 people in Britain classified as fixated individuals, with roughly 20% potentially presenting some level of threat. Those figures were offered in the context of explaining why royal protection cannot simply be switched on overnight.
Sources say he naturally welcomes the opportunity to see more of the Sussex family in a personal and private capacity, but the King is clear that there will be no alteration to the Duke and Duchess's role and status as private individuals and non-working royals in keeping with their clearly expressed wishes and agreement over past years. There is no half-in, half-out option. Now, this is the King being weak. I'm just going to say it because the mainstream media will not say it. He says, in keeping with their clearly expressed wishes and agreements over past years. Yeah, they've changed their mind. They've changed their mind, Richard, because they realise they're not making the money.
Davies also discussed the Sussex's public standing, suggesting that intense hostility toward high-profile figures can itself become something security professionals have to consider. That doesn't mean unfavourable polling automatically equals a direct threat. But when somebody attracts enormous attention, protection teams may need to assess whether that attention creates additional risks, and those arrangements can become extremely expensive. Davies said protecting residences requires major technical preparation and potentially costs millions. Decisions are based on intelligence and formal risk assessments, not simply whether Harry requests protection.
Let you go. What a bunch of hypocritical, non-contritional pain in the asses these two are. Sorry, I can't have it.
They are horrendous, actually, and unfortunately they've come with a terrible attitude because they're going to make things that are easy for them, see the King now and then twist it. Meghan's going to make her book out of it, and Harry is going to make money out of it. It's just too awful.
Daisy McAndrew added another complication, suggesting the wider protection system is already under pressure because several living former prime ministers require continuing security. In other words, Harry's situation exists inside a much larger system, dealing with numerous protected public figures. Davies was clearly unimpressed with how the situation appeared to be developing. Whoever is advising them needs to rethink their structure and their professionalism, he said. This is nonsensical. But perhaps the biggest question is how dramatically the public narrative around Harry's life has changed. Hannah Furness, royal editor of The Telegraph, recalled that sources close to Harry had previously painted a completely different picture. It wasn't that long ago, she said, that sources in his camp were saying he's never been happier. He's learning to surf. He loves his life.
This is a huge thing, isn't it? That is actually a man who walked away from his family and the great thing of this country and decided that they were awful, was very rude about them, and they would never go and see them again. And then suddenly, whoosh, in no time, well, it's obviously 6 years, but no time from now that he's been talking to his father, he's decided what he's going to do. I think it's going to be dangerous, because why would he need to do it so quickly? Why?
The message then was that Harry was settled in California and wasn't looking backward. More recently, however, the conversation appears to have shifted toward Britain again. Angela Levin has framed that change far more aggressively, while Furness has remained more cautious. And that's exactly why what Furness noticed next could matter more than all the shouting surrounding this story. And Hannah Furness wasn't willing to pretend there was one simple explanation for this sudden change. There may be financial things, she said. There may be visa things, and there may be things that haven't been part of this conversation so far. Then she summed up the confusion even more clearly. Nothing about it makes perfect sense. That matters because Furness is the royal editor of The Telegraph, one of the newspapers closely covering the story. She also questioned the suggestion that King Charles and his team knew virtually nothing about these plans.
And I'm also amazed by the palace's barefaced insistence that the king didn't know till Sunday. Yeah, sure. Pull the other one, mate. It's got bells on. And the idea that the king just knew about this on Sunday is absolutely ridiculous. But the other point to say about this is that it's really hard to understand anything that's happened in the British royal family over the last couple of years.
Harry and Charles reportedly met for tea in July, and Furness said she would be surprised if some version of the subject hadn't surfaced. In her words, the idea that nothing came up simply does not wash. Tom Sykes has also pointed toward previous moments when public messaging around Harry and Meghan later became disputed or required clarification. And after everything surrounding this story, we're still left with one question. Nobody outside Harry and Meghan's inner circle can answer with certainty. Why now? After roughly 6 years of building their lives in California, Britain is suddenly being discussed as part of their future again, despite all the previous arguments over security, family tensions, the press, and their unhappiness with royal life.
The other side of it is that, Meghan herself, and this is my belief, I think you will see more of her going out to their Portuguese home, this holiday that they have. I don't think she'll base herself in the rainy, drainy Cotswolds that we're going to have this weather today, Ainsley. She's not going to enjoy it. Part of the problem, though, is, what will she fill her time with? Because a lot of the relationships that she had over here, my belief is this, really, it's a lot harder for her. It always is in relationships, isn't it? Let's be honest. It's always harder for the woman, right? Mm-hmm. The problem that people will be looking at, for instance, if this is a royal event, whether she would then now, and she would have to do this by royal protocol, curtsy to William and Catherine. That's going to be a big turning point.
That's what makes this possible return so fascinating. Harry and Meghan spent years publicly explaining why they stepped away. There was the Oprah interview, the Netflix series, Harry's memoir, multiple interviews, and countless headlines examining their relationship with the royal family. Their reasons for leaving Britain became one of the most discussed celebrity stories in the world. But the explanation for potentially coming back is nowhere near as clear. Depending on who you believe, this could be about rebuilding Harry's relationship with King Charles. It could involve the children spending more time around their extended family. It could be connected to security arrangements. Some commentators are looking at finances, while tax experts have pointed toward the unusually interesting timing surrounding their years of non-UK residency. And Lady Colin Campbell has pushed a far more dramatic theory involving Harry's situation in America, although that allegation remains unverified and should not be treated as established fact. Maybe one of those explanations is close to the truth. Maybe several factors are working together. Or perhaps there is another reason behind the scenes that hasn't become public yet.
It's just that they have had to deal with a very tumultuous and difficult situation. And they have rarely been doing it in terms of the 12-step program. And anybody who knows about the 12-step program will know that the way they've been dealing with it is let go and let God and basically give the buggers enough rope to hang themselves with, and they will. And haven't they just hung themselves with enough rope? Because here they are coming back, tail between the legs, no security. All the demands are no longer met. Where's the apology? I mean, Harry and Meghan said they would never return to the United Kingdom without an apology from the King and the Queen and from William.
And that's why the first major public appearance connected to any return could become such a huge media moment. If Harry, Meghan and their children are eventually photographed arriving or settling back into Britain, that image would almost certainly spread across newspapers, television and social media within hours. After years of headlines about their departure, the symbolism of seeing them back on British soil would be impossible for the media to ignore. But don't assume every dramatic prediction surrounding that moment is guaranteed to happen. We still don't know exactly what their long-term plans are, what arrangements may have been discussed privately, or whether every detail currently circulating will actually materialise. What we do know is that the story has flipped completely. For years, the question was whether Harry would ever truly rebuild a life in Britain. Now the conversation has shifted toward what a return could look like.
Meghan's wanted to make her money for a long time, so she'll use everything there. She'll have many more things to take care of. it will make people feel that this is also what the king has done, because the relationship wasn't very good, and they will carry on doing this and making it more and more worse for the king. I think it's terrible. I think it will make him quite ill. I think it will make Catherine quite ill, because Meghan's going to go up to her and pretend that they're friends again, and oh, hello, hi there. And Meghan and Catherine, I don't know how she will deal with it.
What role King Charles might play, whether security changes, and how the rest of the royal family responds. So, now I want your take. Which explanation makes the most sense to you? Family, finances, security, tax timing, or something else entirely? Drop your theory in the comments, because there are clearly a lot of different ways to read this situation. And if you enjoyed the breakdown, make sure to like, share, and subscribe so you don't miss the next update. There is still plenty more celebrity drama developing, and this story could get even more interesting once we see what actually happens, rather than what commentators are predicting. And don't leave just yet. Click the next video you see on your screen for even more celebrity drama, controversies, and stories making headlines right now. Thanks for watching, and I'll see you on the next one.